Christ in the Heart, Strengthened with Might by Alexander Maclaren. That he would grant you according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might by his Spirit in the inner man. Ephesians 3, verse 16. In no part of Paul's letters does he rise to a higher level than in his prayers, and none of his prayers are fuller of fervor than this wonderful series of petitions. They open out one into the other, like some majestic suite of apartments in a great palace temple, each leading into a loftier and more spacious hall, each drawing nearer the presence chamber, until at last we stand there. Roughly speaking, the prayer is divided into 4 petitions, of which each is the cause of the following and the result of the preceding. That he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, be strengthened with might by his Spirit in the inner man. That is the first. In order that Christ may dwell in your hearts by faith, ye being rooted and grounded in love. Such is the second, the result of the first, and the preparation for the third, that ye may be able to comprehend with all saints, and to know the love of Christ, which passeth knowledge. Such is the next, and all lead up at last to that wonderful desire beyond which nothing is possible, that ye might be filled with all the fullness of God. I venture to contemplate dealing with these 4 petitions in successive sermons, in order, God helping me, that I may bring before you a fairer vision of the possibilities of your Christian life than you ordinarily entertain. For Paul's prayer is God's purpose, and what he means with all who profess his name is that these exuberant desires may be fulfilled in them. So let us now listen to that petition, which is the foundation of all, and consider that great thought of the divine strength giving power which may be bestowed upon every Christian soul. 1. First then, I remark that God means and wishes that all Christians should be strong by the possession of the Spirit of might. It is a miserably inadequate conception of Christianity, and of the gifts which it bestows, and the blessings which it intends for men, when it is limited, as it practically is, by a large number, I might almost say the majority, of professing Christians to a simple means of altering their relation to the past and to the broken law of God and of righteousness. Thanks be to his name. His great gift to the world begins in each individual case with the assurance that all the past is canceled. He gives that blessed sense of forgiveness, which can never be too highly estimated unless it is forced out of its true place as the introduction and made to be the climax at the end of his gifts. I do not know what Christianity means, unless it means that you and I are forgiven for a purpose. That the purpose, if I may so say, is something in advance of the means towards the purpose. The purpose being that we should be filled with all the strength and righteousness and supernatural life granted to us by the Spirit of God. It is well that we should enter into the vestibule. There is no other path to the throne but through the vestibule. But do not let us forget that the good news of forgiveness, though we need it day by day and perpetually repeated, is but the introduction to and porch of the temple, and that beyond it there are towers, if I cannot say a loftier, yet I may say a further gift, even the gift of a divine life like his, from whom it comes, and of which it is in reality an effluence and a spark. The true characteristic blessing of the gospel is the gift of a new power to a sinful, weak world, a power which makes the feeble strong, and the strongest as an angel of God. Oh, brethren, We who know how, if any power we have, it is to ill. We who understand the weakness, the unaptness of our spirits to any good, and our strength for every vagrant evil that comes upon them to tempt them, should surely recognize as a gospel in very deed that which proclaims to us that the everlasting God, the Lord, the Creator of the ends of the earth, who himself fainteth not, neither is weary, hath yet a loftier display of his strength-giving power than that which is visible in the heavens above, where, because he strong in might, not one faileth. That heaven, the region of calm completeness, of law unbroken, and therefore of power undiminished, affords a lesser and dimmer manifestation of his strength than the work that is done in the hell of a human heart that is wandered and is brought back, that is stricken with the weakness of the fever of sin, and is healed into the strength of obedience and the omnipotence of dependence. It is much to say, for that he is strong in might, not one of these faileth. It is more to say, he giveth power to them that have failed, and to them that have no might, he increaseth strength. The gospel is the gift of pardon for holiness, and its inmost and most characteristic bestowment is the bestowment of a new power for obedience and service. And that power, as I need not remind you, is given to us through the gift of the divine Spirit. The very name of that Spirit is the Spirit of might. Christ spoke to us about being endued with power from on high. The last of his promises that dropped from his lips upon earth was the promise that his followers should receive the power of the Spirit coming upon them. Wheresoever in the early histories we read of a man that was full of the Holy Ghost, we read that he was full of power. According to the teaching of this apostle, God hath given us the Spirit of power, which is also the Spirit of love and of a sound mind. So the strength that we must have, if we have strength at all, is the strength of a divine Spirit, not our own, that dwells in us and works through us. And there's nothing in that which needs startle or surprise any man who believes in a living God at all, and in the possibility, therefore, of a connection between the Great Spirit and all the human spirits which are his children. I would maintain, in opposition to many modern conceptions, the actual supernatural character of the gift that is bestowed upon every Christian soul. My reading of the New Testament is that is distinctly above the order of material nature, as is any miracle, is the gift that flows into a believing heart. There is a direct passage between God and my spirit. It lies open to his touch. All the paths of its deep things can be trodden by him. You and I act upon one another from without. He acts upon us within. We wish one another blessings. He gives the blessings. We try to train, to educate, to incline, and dispose by the presentation of motives and the urging of reasons. He can plant in a heart by his own divine husbandry the seed that shall blossom into immortal life. And so the Christian church is a great, continuous, supernatural community in the midst of the material world. And every believing soul, because it possesses something of the life of Jesus Christ, has been the seat of a miracle as real and true as when he said, "Lazarus, come forth." Precisely this teaching does our Lord himself present for our acceptance, when he sets side by side, as mutually illustrative as belonging to the same order of supernatural phenomena. The hour is coming when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live, which is the supernatural resurrection of souls dead in sin. And the hour is coming in the which all that are in the grave shall hear his voice and shall come forth, which is the future resurrection of the body in obedience to his will. So, Christian men and women, do you set clearly before you this, that God's purpose with you is but begun when he has forgiven you? That he forgives you for a design, that it is a means to an end, and that you have not reached the conception of the large things which he intends for you, unless you have risen to this great thought. He means and wishes that you should be strong with the strength of his own divine Spirit. 2. Now notice next that this divine power has its seat in and is intended to influence the whole of the inner life. As my text puts it, we may be strengthened with might by his Spirit in the inner man. By the inner man, I suppose, is not meant the new creation through faith in Jesus Christ, which this apostle calls the new man, but simply what Peter calls the hidden man of the heart, the soul, or unseen self, as distinguished from the visible material body which it animates and informs. It is this inner self, then, in which the Spirit of God is to dwell, and into which it is to breathe strength. The leaven is hid deep in 3 measures of meal, until the whole be leavened. And the point to mark is that the whole inward region, which makes up the true man, is the field upon which this divine Spirit is to work. It is not a bit for your inward life that it is to be hallowed. It is not any one aspect of it that is to be strengthened, but it is the whole intellect, affections, desires, tastes, powers of attention, conscience, imagination, memory, will. The whole inner man, in all its corners, is to be filled and to come under the influence of this power, until there be no part dark, as when the bright shining of a candle giveth thee light. There's no part of my being that is not patent to the tread of this divine guest. There are no rooms of the house of my Spirit into which he may not go. Let him come with the master key in his hand into all the dim chambers of your feeble nature. And as the one life is light in the eye, and color in the cheek, and deftness in the fingers, and strength in the arm, and pulsation in the heart, so he will come with the manifold results of the one gift to you. He will strengthen your understandings and make you able for loftier tasks of intellect and of reason that you can face in your unaided power. He will dwell in your affections and make them vigorous to lay hold upon the holy things that are above their natural inclination, and will make it certain that their reach shall not be beyond their grasp. As alas, it so often is in the sadness and disappointments of human love. He will come into that feeble, vacillating, wayward will of yours that is only obstinate in its adherence to the low and the evil, as some foul creature that one may try to wrench away digs its claws into corruptions and holds on by that. He will lift your will and make it fix upon the good and abominate the evil. And through the whole being, he will pour a great tide of strength which shall cover all the weakness. He will be like some subtle elixir which, taken into the lips, steals through a pallid and wasted frame, and brings back a glow to the cheek, and a luster to the eye, and swiftness to the brain, and power to the whole nature. Or as some plant, drooping and flagging beneath the hot rays of the sun, when it has the scent of water given to it, will in all its parts stiffen and erect itself. So when the Spirit is poured out on men, their whole nature is invigorated and helped. That indwelling Spirit will be a power for suffering. The parallel passage to this in the twin epistle to the Colossians is, strengthened with all might unto all patience and long suffering with gentleness. Ah, brethren, unless the divine Spirit were a power for patience and endurance, it were no power suited to us poor men. So dark at times is every life, so full at times of discouragements, of dreariness, of sadness, of loneliness, of bitter memories, and of fading hopes does the human heart become, that if we are to be strong, we must have a strength that will manifest itself most chiefly in this, that it teaches us how to bear, how to weep, how to submit. And it will be a power for conflict. We have all of us, in the discharge of duty, in the meeting of temptation, to face such tremendous antagonisms that unless we have grace given to us, which will enable us to resist, we shall be overcome and swept away. God's power from the divine Spirit within us does not absolve us from the fight, but it fits us for the fight. It is not given in order that holiness may be won without a struggle, as some people seem to think, but it is given to us in order that in the struggle for holiness we may never lose one jot of heart or hope, but may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. It is a power for service. Tarry ye in Jerusalem, till ye be endued with power from on high. There is no such force for the spreading of Christ's kingdom and the witness-bearing work of his church as the possession of this divine Spirit. Plunged into that fiery baptism, the selfishness and the sloth, which stand in the way of so many of us, are all consumed and annihilated, and we are set free for service because the bonds that bound us are burnt up in the merciful furnace of his fiery power. Ye shall be strengthened with might by his Spirit in the inner man, a power that will fill and flood all your nature if you will let it, and will make you strong to suffer, strong to combat, strong to serve, and to witness for your Lord. 3. And now lastly, let me point you still further to the measure of this power. It is limitless with the boundlessness of God himself. That he would grant you is the daring petition of the apostle, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened. There's the measure. There's no limit except the uncounted wealth of his own self-manifestation, the flashing light of revealed divinity. Whatsoever there is of splendor in that, whatsoever there is of power there, in these and in nothing on this side of them, lies the limit of the possibilities of a Christian life. Of course, there is a working limit at each moment, and that is our capacity to receive. But that capacity varies, may vary indefinitely, may become greater and greater beyond our count or measurement. Our hearts may be more and more capable of God, and in the measure of which they are capable of him, they shall be filled by him. A limit which is always shifting is no limit at all. A kingdom, the boundaries of which are not the same from one year to another, by reason of its own inherent expansive power, may be said to have no fixed limit. And so we appropriate and enclose, as it were, within our own little fence, a tiny portion of the great prairie that rolls boundlessly to the horizon. but tomorrow we may enclose more, if we will, and more, and so ever onwards. For all that is God's is ours, and he has given us his whole self to use and to possess through our faith in his Son. A thimble can only take up a thimbleful of the ocean. But what if the thimble be endowed with a power of expansion, which has no term known to men? May it not, then, be that some time or other it shall be able to hold so much of the infinite depth as now seems a dream too audacious to be realized? So it is with us and God. He lets us come into the vaults, as it were, where in piles and masses the ingots of uncoined and uncounted gold are stored and stacked. And he says, take as much as you like to carry. There's no limit except the riches of his glory. And now, dear friends, remember that this great gift offered to each of us is offered on conditions. To you professing Christians especially I speak. You will never get it unless you want it, and some of you do not want it. There are plenty of people in this chapel at this moment who call themselves Christian men that would not for the life of them know what to do with this great gift if they had it. You will get it if you desire it. Ye have not, because ye ask not. Oh, when one contrasts the largeness of God's promises and the miserable contradiction to them which the average Christian life of this generation presents, what can we say? Has his mercy clean gone forever? Doth his promise fail forevermore? Ye weak Christian people, born weakling and weak ever since, and so many of you are, open your mouths wide. Rise to the height of the expectations and the desires which it is our sin not to cherish. And be sure of this, as we ask, so shall we receive. Ye are not straitened in God. Alas, alas, ye are straitened in yourselves. And mind, there must be self-suppression if there is to be the triumph of a divine power in you. You cannot fight with both classes of weapons. The human must die if the divine is to live. The life of nature, dependence on self, must be weakened and subdued if the life of God is to overcome and to fill you. You must be able to say, not I, or you will never be able to say, Christ liveth in me. The patriarch that overcame halted on his thigh, and all the life of nature was lamed and made impotent, that the life of grace might prevail. So crush self by the power and for the sake of the Christ, if you would that the Spirit should bear rule over you. See to it, too, that you use what you have of that divine Spirit. To him that hath shall be given. What is the use of more water being sent down the mill lade, if the water that does come to it all runs away at the bottom, and none of it goes over the wheel? Use the power you have, and power will come to the faithful steward of what he possesses. He that is faithful in a little shall get much to be faithful over. Ask and use, and the ancient thanksgiving may still come from our lips. In the day when I cried, thou answeredst me, and strengthenedst me with strength in my soul.